in terms of tackling, especially against the run, was Grant Morgan and Bumper Poole. Normally we saw those guys putting up double-digit tackles, but they did not this week, only getting 5 tackles each, and it makes sense why this happened. Sam Pittman, in his post-game press conference, basically said that these guys have not been tackling at all this week because of their injuries, so it makes sense why if you don't tackle all week, you're going to struggle tackling in the rain against a pretty good running back at Tanks Bigsby. Defense not creating any turnovers, but we should have had 2 from Bo Nix fumbling. Now going into the grades, I'm not going to be too generous here. Offense, I'm going to give them a B. I just don't think that we stepped up enough when we needed it. The fourth quarter offense looked really rough, especially on that drive with Malik Hornsby. The questionable play calling with the trick plays and things like that just did not make any sense. However, Franks had a totally great game, and I'd give him an A. Traylon Smith had a great game. I'd give him an A-, but I think the execution in key situations definitely did not help us at all, especially when we got the ball back after Auburn missed that field goal. So that's the reason I'm going to give offense a B. I'm going to give the defense a B because I think we couldn't stop the run, but I don't necessarily think it's their fault because of the amount of guys we had injured or taking limited reps in practice, like Poole or Morgan. If you don't have guys practicing all week, it's going to be hard to perform that same way. So I don't think I should give them too rough of a grade because of the fact that they weren't practicing and getting their reps in, and they weren't at full strength. So I'm going to give them a B. I'd say that's a pretty generous B, though, considering Auburn ran 256 yards on the ground with their backup running backs, and Tanks Bigsby just looked like an absolute tank, living up to his name, just bouncing off Razorback defenders. Tackling definitely has to improve if we play another pretty good running back in the SEC. I give the special teams a D-. Now, I'm sure you could give them an F here. The only reason I gave him a D- is because we had that 23-yard field goal, which put us in the lead originally, and then we also had the point after tip made by A.J. Reed. And punts were all right when we got the actual punt formation and blocking everything right. When we got punts in the air, they were fine. They went at 42 yards with George Carrington, not with Reed Bauer, the backup, but everything was fine on punting until we just could not execute anything on special teams. And that's why I gave him a D-, because we couldn't execute anything on special teams in terms of getting punts right, multiple illegal formations, multiple false start. And like I said, I explained that in the beginning of the episode, so if you want a little bit more on that, listen to that, you can scroll back. But I'm going to give this team an overall a B-, and I know that seems a little generous considering how bad special teams was, but this team fought hard. We were down 17-0 in an SEC football game against number 13 in the country, Auburn. The Razorbacks didn't stop. This is a team that we've seen multiple years get ahead in games and then quit. This is a team that we've seen multiple years get behind in games and then quit. This is something that Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks aren't going to happen anymore. Our days of being embarrassed are over. We are a real team in the Southeastern Conference, and I'm looking forward to see what these boys can do next week against Ole Miss. Like Sam Pittman said, and I've said, our days of embarrassment are over. Arkansas is going into each week with the idea that they can win this game throughout the fan base and the players, which is just awesome to finally see. And to finally be almost upset after a game is kind of good. I can't remember this last Arkansas game where I was like, we should have won that game. We played so much better than the other team because we were constantly getting blown out by like North Texas and Western Kentucky. We didn't win an SEC game in forever, and Arkansas probably should have 2 SEC wins throughout 3 games. This is a team that a lot of people in the national media picked to go 1-9 or 0-10. The laughingstock of the SEC has turned into a possible top 3, top 4, top 2 SEC West program. That's just enough to say how good Sam Pittman, Coach Briles, Coach Odom, and I'm excited to see what these Razorbacks can do versus Ole Miss. That preview should be out Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. as normal. Arkansas looking to come off of this tough loss against Auburn and beat Ole Miss at home. You can find all ways to listen in my social medias at allhogsports.com. And as always, whoop pig!
That's all for today's episode of All Hog Sports with Sam Stimson. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode covering all Arkansas Razorback sports. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media too. On Twitter and Instagram at All Hog Sports Pod. Like on Facebook at All Hog Sports and Arkansas Razorbacks Podcast. And on YouTube at that same name. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Go Hogs!